Independent versus captive. It's one of the most misunderstood concepts in financial services, but here's the bigger issue. Most advisors explain it in a way that clients don't really care about. In this Quick Wins episode of the Playbook, we're breaking down exactly how to position your independence in a way that actually will resonate without sounding technical, defensive, or self-serving. Let's dive in.
This is the Financial Advisor Marketing Playbook, a show for financial advisors who want to explore the topic of client acquisition and business growth. Your host is Mark Mersman, Chief Marketing Officer at USA Financial. He is an investment advisor representative of securities offered through USA Financial Securities, member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor.
Welcome back to the Playbook. Today I want to talk about how you position yourself as an independent advisor. At USA Financial, we work with independent advisors all throughout the country. And certainly it is a big part of, I guess, what makes you different. If you've made that decision to go independent, you know, obviously, why you did it. In many reasons, for many cases, there was some personal benefits as to why you made that choice, but it was also about your clients. And I think one of the challenges is the fact that oftentimes when advisors explain the difference between a captive advisor and an independent advisor, they get way too technical. So we're going to talk about that in a moment. But at first, when you are explaining it, you have to define it, and I would keep it very simple. And when you're first putting this out there, as you're having a conversation with a prospective client, especially if they are a client of one of the quote unquote captive or career places or have accounts there, I want you to really think about describing it, defining it very briefly, and then moving on, because you'll circle back to it a little bit later in the conversation. But I would keep it simple, something along the lines of, one thing that is a little bit different about us is, as an independent advisor, we do have broader access to solutions and a little bit more flexibility. We used to be captive, or if you've ever worked with a quote unquote captive advisor, they're typically affiliated with one firm, and basically have a limited set of products. Then move on. Here's the thing that you have to realize about that initial conversation. Those definitions do not win business. The translation does, because here's the thing. What most advisors get wrong with this conversation is they're too technical. They'll start getting into licensing. They'll get into broker-dealer talk or RIA structure. The client has no idea about that. So kick the licensing stuff outside, out the window. That's not significant to them. In the average consumer's mind, every advisor has the same license. And so they lump us all in the same. So that's really not going to be a big differentiator for you. It's also too self-focused. There's too much emphasis on you, the advisor. We have access to. So we have to avoid that. The other mistake that we'll see happen a lot is oftentimes that conversation can very easily be perceived as being too negative, where you're bashing on captive firms. And that's immediate, especially if they have accounts there or they've worked with somebody from a quote unquote captive firm. You are immediately going to get their defenses up. So you want to avoid being negative. We want to obviously avoid bashing. That's not going to win any clients. The reality that the client's thinking as they're sitting down with you is, will you help me make better decisions? And can I trust your advice? If I'm sitting with you and going to hire you as my financial professional, can I trust your advice? Is this about me or is this about you? We cannot lose sight of the fact that as humans, and we're engaging in a professional relationship or exploring a professional relationship, we've all been in situations where the person that's doing the selling is making it all about them rather than you as the potential client. And that there is no bigger turnoff than doing that. So we don't want to make it about the advisor. We need to make it about what is the benefit, what is the client outcome. And so, if your explanation doesn't answer some of those questions, it's not working. If it doesn't answer the how you'll help them make better decisions, how they can trust your advice, and whether it's truly about the client, then it is not working. So we need to reframe this around client outcomes and reframe the independent versus captive conversation there. So it needs to be, rather than a structure based, which is oftentimes the explanation that most advisors will lean into. Well, we have this licensure and we decided to go independent. That doesn't mean anything. We need an outcome based explanation. So the positioning goes, there's kind of three, I guess, pillars that you can follow to help position this correctly. The first pillar is unbiased advice, because obviously at the core, that's what led many advisors to go the independent route, broadens their access to investments and products that they can in turn benefit their clients. And so instead of saying we're independent, say something to the effect of we're able to make recommendations based upon what's best for you and not based upon what's best for a captive company or a parent company, or maybe you can even, if you don't want to throw a parent company, under the bus, it's really what's best for you, not based upon a limited menu or a limited offering. And you could even use something along the lines of, if you've ever been to a dinner party and they have a limited menu, oftentimes what's available to eat is great, but sometimes it's not what you want and you wish that you had access to a bigger menu. That's a little bit of what was happening and why we made the decision to go independent, because it benefits our clients to expand the list of menu and options available. The second one there is kind of leaning into that more options and helping them understand that more options is going to equal a better fit. And so rather than saying we have access to thousands of products, I want you to think about saying something like, we can look across a wide range of solutions to find exactly what actually fits your situation and not force your situation into a preset box. We don't want to feel like we have to put a round peg in a square hole. The benefit of the decision that we made or that of our setup is we have access and we can look at across a wide range of solutions to help find something that actually fits your situation. Again, it's outcome based. It's focused on the client. It's not focused on you. The other pillar is kind of flexibility over time. And, instead of saying we're not tied to a company, say something like, as your life changes and your needs evolve, one of the beautiful things for us and why we've set ourselves up as an independent firm is we're able to adapt your plan without being locked into one way of doing things. Again, this is positioning it as a consumer-based outcome rather than focused on the independent structure. Again, the consumer is first, and that's really what they're looking for. So as you're thinking about how to have this conversation, one easy way to think about it, making it a little more conversational. If you're going to say something to your prospective client, you could say, think of it this way. Some advisors are limited to a specific set of solutions. Our structure allows us to look across a much broader landscape and build a plan around you, not around a specific product lineup. Or you can even be more direct. Our independence simply means that we're able to focus entirely on what's best for you with flexibility in how we solve problems both now and into the future. Or if you want to kind of stick with an analogy, it's kind of like going to a doctor who can prescribe from one manufacturer versus one who can choose from anything available to them. And really the goal for us is to find out what's right for you, not just what's on the shelf. Again, these are things that you're starting to create some tangibility, but you're really shifting that focus to the client or prospective client. Now, where does this show up in your marketing? First of all, I might revisit whether or not you choose to lead with being an independent advisor. We want to lead with outcomes and trust, and the fact that you are independent is kind of what allows you to accomplish that. Use it as more of a confidence builder, especially in that first meeting, and not a lecture. You don't, if you ever feel like you are pitching your independence, you're probably doing it wrong. It needs to be a little bit more of a confidence builder. It's a conversational thing, not a lecture that you're talking down that the other way is bad. You could easily do a video content, a short video on what independence means for your clients. Again, not so much about you, what independence means for your clients. You could work in some social proof. Whether you're kind of doing a case study with a client, we were able to make this adjustment because to adjust from X and go into Y because we weren't locked into one preset or predetermined set of outcomes or solutions. The big thing that I want to just kind of drive home, and I know this should seem obvious, but some things to avoid, never bash on other advisors or firms. We'll often say, there's nothing wrong with different business models. Ours just happens to be different or unique. And here's why we chose to go down the path that we did. Don't over-explain your structure, and certainly avoid using any jargon. Don't get caught in the minutia of licenses and all that, because at the end of the day, clarity is going to build trust, and complexity is just going to create distance and confusion. And so we want to avoid overcomplicating this conversation and what it means. The bigger positioning opportunity to be thinking about is, this isn't about independence as much as it is about trust, objectivity, and personalization. The personalization that you're able to do for your clients to help them achieve their goals, it's not limited because of how you've decided to set your firm up. When you think about it, independence is not the message. It is the reason your message is credible. So think about that. Independence isn't your message. It's the reason that your message is credible and leads to trustworthiness, the objectivity that you bring to the table. So if you can't clearly explain why your structure benefits your clients, then you're leaving trust and opportunities on the table. So if you want more ideas like this, simple ways to communicate your value more effectively, make sure you've subscribed to us on your favorite podcast player or on YouTube. This is the type of content that we'll put out on this podcast. So please remember to go and subscribe, and certainly give us a like and a thumbs up or a comment to let us know that you appreciate this type of content. Take care. Have a good one.
This information is for licensed financial professionals only and is not intended for use in soliciting sales from the public. The views expressed represent the opinions of the presenter or their featured guest, not necessarily those of USA Financial or its affiliated subsidiaries. Industry references are generic and are not intended to represent actions or beliefs of any individual or entity. Content is only presented to illustrate general principles, beliefs, or ideas and should not be construed as legal or regulatory advice. Trademark and copyright protected. USA Financial and Affiliates.